Hello there and welcome to The Big Story, where we'll discuss the hottest topics of the day right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Dylan, coming to you live from the Straits Times. Now, we are streaming on Facebook and on YouTube, so be sure to like, share and comment on our video. And while you're at it, if you haven't already done so, do subscribe to our channel and click the bell button so as to be notified whenever we go live. In a few moments, I'll be joined by my newsroom colleagues where we'll discuss the hottest stories that got you talking today. Today, we'll be talking about the dark web, Singapore's first zero-waste master plan, and why are Singapore's PSI readings so different from those used elsewhere, and which are correct. In fact, we will be having an expert from the NEA, or National Environment Agency, to explain how the PSI really works. Now, for our first story, a Singaporean man was jailed on Wednesday for 5 years for trying to hire a hitman on the dark web to kill his ex-lover's new boyfriend. Alan Vincent Hui Kim Seng may not be the only one who has turned to Hitmen-for-hire sites. Mr. Christopher Montero, a security analyst based in London, alerted a US-based journalist who then tipped off the Singapore authorities. Now, with us to tell us more is the newspaper journalist David Sun, who broke the story. Hi, David.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Hi, David. So welcome to the show. Now, David, I understand that Mr. Montero revealed that there were 3 others in Singapore who were targeted on these hitman sites. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
So the news of Alan Vincent broke in May last year, and it was fascinating because I've heard rumors about people hiring hitmen on dark web, but you don't really expect anyone to be targeted in Singapore.
Yep.
And after that, CBS ran a whole piece on Hitmen-for-hire on the dark web, featuring Chris Montero in September last year. So I reached out to Chris, and it was very interesting because the first reply that I got from him was him sharing that at that time there was already one other target in Singapore. That was in October or so. Then in November and December last year, he informed me of 2 other hits ordered in Singapore. The targets did not appear to have anything else in common, except that they were in Singapore. And based on the details provided from Chris, the first target we found seemed to be a student at a school in Punggol.
Oh, wow.
The second was a woman working in the West, and her photo was also uploaded to the site, making it really easy for anybody to identify her. And the third was a man with an Ang Mo Kio address.
Now, David, in your news report, you mentioned that these individuals were allegedly targeted through websites such as Kimura Hitman, which actually offers assassin-for-hire on the dark web. But how do these hitman sites actually work? And are they actually difficult to access?
Well, the dark web is relatively easy to access because it's used to provide services. So it's pretty simple. You download something called a Tor browser, and almost anyone can do it in a couple of clicks if you know what you're doing. You just have to know the address of the site and you're in. As for sites for like Kimura Hitman, it's a service, so naturally it's quite easy to find the links because they kind of advertise it in certain places. It's quite accessible. How it works is just go to the site, you create an account, you give details, you discuss, you indicate a target, you provide as much detail as you can, a name, address, a photo, whatever, and what you want done to them. So it's not just assassinations whereby you kill somebody.
Yep.
In some cases, they ordered hits for like hurting somebody. So when you key in all these details, you get an automatic reply, and a short while later, then you get a follow-up reply with a price in Bitcoin. They provide instructions then on how you are supposed to pay in Bitcoin, and you're supposed to get the Bitcoin, put it into a wallet, and show proof that you have the money ready.
So Bitcoin is the only way that you can pay?
Yes, for most of these sites, the main way they transact is through Bitcoin,
okay.
Like as with most things on the dark web, or some form of digital currency. So then you kind of discuss how you want the hits to be carried out, and just before the hit is carried out, you are expected to transfer the Bitcoin over.
Now, you also mentioned that a lot of these hitman sites are believed to be scams. Why is this so?
Yeah, well, it's believed and has been reported quite extensively that such sites are scams. It's been found that such sites actually have very poor security protocols, which is why people like Chris were able to retrieve the site's information and all these names and share it with the media and the authorities. From what they've retrieved, it appears that the reviews on these sites are all fake, and no hits seem to have actually been carried out. Other experts also note that half of the supposed assassins for hire on such sites are actually police officers, undercover police officers, and they're there to detect murder plots. So really, while getting to such sites is relatively easy, getting an actual hitman will actually be quite difficult.
And I mean, moving forward, how does the future actually look like for all these kind of sites and stuff?
Well, Hitmen-for-hire sites result in a rather unique situation. The sole purpose of such sites really is, from the user's point of view, is clearly to kill, to harm somebody.
Yep.
A criminal conviction usually entails mens rea and actus reus. So while the hits might not actually be carried out, it is still an offence to place an order on such sites.
Yeah, so I think it's about intention, right? I think I read
Yes,
that
yes.
it's more about, I mean, the police takes into consideration the intention,
Yes.
much more than the actual act of actually ordering, not ordering, but
Yeah.
going to these sites.
Yeah, so going to the site, if you go to the site and you don't actually do anything, you don't discuss a name, you don't give a target, that itself is not an offence, or rather it's quite hard to prove that it's an offence. But because these sites are like I said, it provides a unique situation because it's purely to kill, to harm. So if you go there and you give a name or you discuss a target, that is not just intention, that is the act.
Okay.
So when you have intention whereby you want to hurt somebody, not acting on it, that is not crime. But the moment you act on it in some form, that is a crime. So I think in the case of Alan Vincent, the court sent a really, really strong message that such offences will not be tolerated. And we shared the details of the 3 alleged targets with the police, so perhaps we'll see prosecution in the future.
Thanks so much for sharing about this topic, David. I think, honestly, I must admit that the first time I heard about this story, I didn't even think it could be real, because, it sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood movie. And actually, it's quite scary that it's happening, quite so close to home.
Yes.
So anyway, of course, to see David's full story, you can always head down to the newspaper website. It's www.tnp.sg. Now, moving on to our second story, it's the 7th day since the haze returned last weekend. Many people have been keeping tabs on the haze situation through the NEA's air quality monitoring network. Now, recently, many have questioned whether the figures on the NEA website have downplayed the severity of the haze. Why are Singapore's PSI readings so different from those used elsewhere, and which are correct? Now, with us to explain how the whole PSI measurement works, we have Jelita Tepper, Chief Scientific Officer from the Pollution Control Department of NEA, as well as ST's Environment Correspondent, Audrey Tan, who has been covering the haze reports. Hello, both.
Hi. Hello.
Now, let's get to the first question. For starters, perhaps, Jelita, you could tell us, lay it out for us. Tell us a brief summary of the air quality readings in Singapore that are available and how they should be used.
Okay. Well, the NEA publishes the 24-hour PSI, or the Pollutant Standards Index, as a reflection of the air quality over the past 24 hours. But during this haze period, we also provide the forecast, the PSI forecast for the next 24 hours. And this is intended to help the members of the public decide and plan the activities ahead of time. In addition to that, we also have the 1-hour PM 2.5 concentrations, which is also available online. And this represents the current air quality. And this helps members of the public to plan their immediate activities. So one thing to note though, the 1-hour PM 2.5 concentrations fluctuates throughout the day due to weather conditions, and members of public advised to check the readings and make adjustments accordingly. So
if I wanted to check, if let's say I wanted to go for a run, I should refer to the PM 2.5, the 1-hour PM 2.5 reading, right?
Yes.
So instead of relying on readings provided by the NEA, there are some Singaporeans who have turned to other air quality readings, such as the AQI, otherwise known as the World Air Quality Index, which is actually compiled by a non-profit organization based in Beijing. Now, they pointed out that while the AQI actually reflected unhealthy levels, NEA's 24-hour PSI actually showed moderate air quality. I mean, which one is correct and which reading should we actually follow?
Okay. Well, Singapore has adopted the name Pollution Standard Index, or PSI, to refer to our indexing system to report air quality. So similarly to PSI, AQI, or the Air Quality Index, used by various countries, is also another term that's used by them to represent their index system. Maybe to give an example, another country like the UK, they use daily air quality index. So different countries use different terms to reflect the index system. And one thing that's important to remember is that there's no international guidelines in computing the air quality index, and different countries adopt different methods depending on their local needs and circumstances. So it's not advisable to compare the Singapore's Pollution Standards Index, or PSI, to AQI or other indexes adopted by other countries.
Well, I mean, going on that note, so why are readings for PSI and AQI so different? I mean, of course, besides the fact that they're measuring different things.
They are measuring, depending on the index system, they measure the same pollutants, right? However, depending on the concentrations, the corresponding index value may differ. So because of that, your index readings from one country or one system may differ from that of Singapore. Yeah.
So Audrey, we saw this week that the haze conditions are actually very fickle. You know, one day it could be very hazy, one day it's very clear. Why is this so?
I think the reason boils down to wind direction. So currently a lot of hotspots are in South Sumatra, which is located directly down south of Singapore, and also in Kalimantan, which is our southeast. So Kalimantan is much further away, and southeasterly winds, even if they bring the smoke haze here, it will not be as bad as if southerly winds bring smoke haze from the fires in Sumatra up. So most of the haze that we've been experiencing now actually comes from the fires in Sumatra.
I see.
And yeah, so slight changes in wind direction could really affect our air quality in Singapore.
So it's wind direction, and wind direction actually is the main...
Wind direction and the location of the hotspots.
Okay. To end things off, Audrey, maybe you could tell us a bit about a brief overview of the haze forecast. I mean, this weekend is F1 weekend, big weekend for Singapore and a lot of Singaporeans.
Okay, so according to the National Environment Agency's forecast, they are expecting the 24-hour PSI would likely be in the high end of the moderate range to the low end of the unhealthy range. But as I mentioned earlier about the winds, so if the winds bring more more haze from the fires down south up, then this could actually, the 24-hour PSI might go into the middle range of the unhealthy air quality. So it really, I mean, whether or not the F1 will be clouded in haze really depends on the wind direction for the next few days.
I think it's very hard to predict like wind direction, right? I mean, it can change, it fluctuates a lot and everything.
Yes.
Thanks, Jalita and Audrey, for clearing up the air, pun intended, about PSI readings and how they really work. And I think everyone is just really looking forward to when air quality levels actually return back to normal. So thanks once again for being on the show. Audrey, we have you in the next segment as well, so don't go away.
Sorry.
Now for our third segment, New Water makes every drop count, and now it's time to do it with waste. Now, Singapore announced its first zero waste master plan last month. The plan targets to send about 30% less waste to the Semakau landfill by 2030 to help Singapore's one and only offshore landfill last longer than the projected 2035. Now, earlier this month, the Resource Sustainability Bill was also passed in Parliament. The new bill aims to compel large waste producers to reuse and recycle more. Now, if you've just joined us, Audrey here is ST's environment correspondent, and we are talking about why the war on waste now. So, hi Audrey.
Hi, again.
Again. Now, I mean, the war on waste, you know, what's your take about it? Why now?
So the government has designated this year as Singapore's year towards zero waste. And I think there have been numerous initiatives that's been rolled out since then. One of the main reasons would be, firstly, that Singapore is producing a lot more waste than before. So figures from the National Environment Agency shows that the amount of waste disposed of in Singapore has gone up 7-fold over the past 40 years. Yeah, so last year, we generated 7.7 million tons of waste. So that's equivalent to 15,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So we are producing more. And where do we dispose of that? So we only have one landfill in Semakau Island, which is off our southern coast. And initially the landfill was supposed to last us until 2045, but this lifespan has already been shortened from 2045 to 2035. So we are producing a lot more now, and we are fast running out of room to store the waste residue. So I think that's one of the reasons why waste has become an issue of concern for us in Singapore.
Well, I think that's certainly very worrying. I mean, we only have one landfill. Now, of course, we all know that Singapore's solution to actually guarantee weatherproof sources of water came in the form of new water many years ago now. And similarly, how can we squeeze more out of waste? You know, what can we look forward to from the Resource Sustainability Act?
So with new water, the National Water Agency, PUB's goal is to reuse every drop of water endlessly. So everything can the same drop of water can be used again and again in the water loop. So I think now the government is looking to do the same thing with waste. There are a few ways that this can be done. So one of the things that is still being studied is how incineration ash can be used as a construction material. So most of our waste in Singapore is incinerated, and a lot of that ash goes into the landfill. So if we can take that ash and use it for something else like construction material, then it would really extend the lifespan of Semakau landfill. So that's one. And they have called it new sand. So we have new water, and now we are looking at new sand. Yeah. So another thing is Dr. Amy Khor, the Senior Minister of State for Environment and Water Resources, in Parliament she mentioned how if Singapore were to recover and reuse the materials in electronic waste, we can actually reap $40 million for our economy. So it ranges from like the value of the raw materials to job creation and stuff. So there are numerous ways. Even in terms of plastic, I think the government is looking to increase the plastic recycling infrastructure in Singapore, so we can convert plastic waste into like chemical feedstock or plastic pellets that manufacturers can use.
I think, Audrey, you know, since primary school, I mean, we've always heard about the 3 Rs, reduce, reuse, recycle. But, you know, all these plans sound really good on paper, you know, but I think there is still a crucial gap, which is how to get people to do the first of the 3 Rs in the first place, which is to reduce their usage, and how do the authorities actually plan to combat this? Because I think this is a major, major problem.
Yeah, I agree with you completely that a lot of people sometimes forget the first of the 3 Rs is to reduce consumption in the first place. There is no legislation that would compel individuals to reduce the amount of resources they consume. But what is being done now is a lot of like ground up approach. So NEA has, in June this year, they rolled out a Say Yes to Waste Less campaign at a number of premises island-wide to get people to reduce the amount of disposables used. And just this week on Monday, NTUC FairPrice, a supermarket chain, they started charging people for plastic bags in a month-long trial at 7 of its outlets. So the plastic bag surcharge that they have implemented is on a per transaction basis, where people pay 20 cents at FairPrice outlets and 10 cents at Cheers and FairPrice Express outlets if they use plastic bags.
Also, they just pay a flat fee and...
Yes, it's a per transaction rate. So initially I thought it was like, why not just charge per plastic bag? But then after looking at some of the comments on social media, you can tell that people really like their plastic bags. So I think it's a good first step. The first of the 3 Rs. So anyway, a lot of these things are really ground up now. Even from civil society's perspective, there's like BYO campaigns or petitions started by individuals to get people to use less and use less plastic straws and stuff like that.
Well, I think honestly, I think the war on waste is one of those things that, you know, we have to keep fighting. It's never going to end, honestly. So anyway, thanks Audrey for talking to us a bit about what the future looks like for Singapore's war against waste. Those were the top stories of the day. For more news and videos, do log on to our website. It's www.straitstimes.com. Now once again, I'm Dylan, and join us next Monday for more stories on The Big Story.